We are live from New Orleans and Raleigh, the Sports Channel 8 Split Studios. Apologies for starting a little late today. I'll be the first to admit, got tripped up in the time zones. Brian Geisinger from ACSports.com and AC Sports Journal and the BuzzBeat podcast was like, Permar, are we doing 10 Eastern or 10 Central?
Yeah.
As a subtle reminder that I was an hour behind. And so sorry for starting a little late. What's going on, BG?
Not much. Well, what it had me having flashbacks to is the first day you and I ever worked together, which was a redacted number of years ago. Alabama football won one of its 18 national championships under Nick Saban, and the kicker for Alabama's team was from Broughton, I think, in Raleigh. And you had booked him to be the guest on the show the next day. This is when I was in college. I was interning with you on the David Glenn show, where you were the producer, and you, while trying to line up this interview, had booked it at 1 p.m. during the 12 to 3 slot for the hours for the show. But you had not factored in Tuscaloosa, I think, being in Central Time Zone or wherever the game had been played the night before. It was something like that. And so we were able to scramble and still got the interview to go on the air and stuff. But today I was like, yeah, he may not remember the Central Time Zone. It's weird when you're only an hour away, you know?
It is tough. And also, like, my being dumb about it or whatever, I always have to like sit and be like, which way am I going? When we were flying to New Orleans, we were talking about when the sun is going to go down. And I was like, oh no, but we're on a different time, so the sun will be going down different. And the person we were with was like, no, that's the whole point of the time zone. It's like the sun is going down later there. And I was like, oh yeah, it won't be 6 o'clock there. It'll be 7 o'clock there because the sun goes down later. That's why we do it. So
yeah.
Anyway, we didn't come here to talk about time zones. We do already have our first request of asking where Ben Swain is. I believe we have a statement from Ben Swain, Brian Geister.
Should I pull up? I've got a notes app screenshot.
We'll get that. We'll do that in just a second.
Okay.
We'll do the statement from Ben Swain. But let's talk a little hoops. Obviously, a national championship game tonight. A Duke UNC game Saturday night that, from all accounts, lived up to the billing. I thought both teams had a little bit of nerves early, some poor shooting getting out of the gate, and just some like early game jitters. But I think it kind of melted away, settled in. We saw not both teams playing the absolute best they could, but a good basketball game between two really good teams, and one that'll be remembered forever. Your immediate takeaways in the aftermath of Duke UNC?
Yeah, like it cuts a couple of different ways. There's just like the emotional level that was the investment in that game. Like, I don't have a dog in that fight, and even then I was on pins and needles all game. I like it from the jump. I was really, it was like once we got within like 15, 20 minutes of tip, I started getting like, I could just feel the jitters a little bit.
Right.
And they never subsided because that game was just like, a roller coaster ride, but a roller coaster that only went down at like an 85-degree angle for 2 hours straight. And I don't know. It also had me sort of like thinking back to the start of the season. Like I saw this Duke team play in a preseason game against Winston-Salem State in October, and that's like not that long ago, but it felt so long ago. Like it, and just like the length of the season was weighing on me too. Just like personally, a lot has happened for me since then. Like I moved. Like I was living in my old house when the season started. It wasn't even Halloween yet, and that was the first time I'd ever like been back in a basketball arena. It was the first time I'd been in an arena this season. The first time I'd been in an arena with fans, I should say.
Right.
Because I called High Point games during the first season while having the COVID-19 pandemic, but it was totally sanitized, no fans. And so, anyways, I was thinking about that too, and then just like these two teams ended up delivering an incredible game. It was like a fun. You could kind of see some of the chess match right off the jump, like Duke scrambling the matchups defensively, putting Paolo Banchero on Leaky Black. as opposed to having him on one of UNC's big guys. And that way they were able to switch a little bit more, scramble some of the matchups. They had Wendell Moore Jr. on Brady Manick. And you could see early on they were saying, we're cool with switching Jeremy Roach onto Brady Manick, and you guys trying to like post up Brady Manick in the mid-range, right? Like we'll live with that.
Yep.
And I just thought like the chess match was interesting, and obviously both teams got off to a pretty tough start, and like Duke never really got going from deep at all.
Yeah.
I think 5 of 25 from deep in that game, and that's like
that was big.
You needed AJ Griffin probably hit a couple of bombs in that game, and even then, I mean, this game was still a coin toss down the stretch, and Duke's main home run threat couldn't even get it rolling. I thought that like some of the shots that Brady Manick hit in the second half were incredible. The shot he hit over the top of Wendell Moore, where he like cut along the baseline, caught it. And the only reason he didn't step out of bounds was because he kept his heels. He literally he kept his heels up, toes on the floor, heels up. It was some Klay Thompson shit. And that was just so nasty. I would have loved to have seen the big guys not be so be seized by foul trouble. Like getting 15 minutes out of Mark Williams in this game stinks. I do think like most, if not all of the fouls that were called on him were like legit fouls. Like I don't think he got jobbed that way necessarily, but it stinks. And going back and like rewatching some of the game yesterday, I just like the play where Banchero saves the ball underneath his own basket, and it goes right to Bacot for the and one foul. Williams picks up, I guess, his fourth foul. Then was just like, what is just a crazy swing, you know what I mean? There were just so many epic plays that happened down the stretch. And then I also will say those guys, the Theo John and Mark Williams getting foul trouble, Duke pivoted and they moved Paolo Banchero to center, and like that's been a good lineup for them this season. With Banchero, you can basically do anything. But it clearly like took Duke out of its base for what they had like planned for the game, right? Which is like they put Paolo Banchero on Leaky Black. So I don't know. I thought both teams and staffs were like quick on their feet to adjust and to try new stuff. And I thought that nimbleness sort of like added to like what was just a really well played and wild game. And then lastly, the last thing I would say too is just like, man, Banchero was awesome in this game. Like I just don't know how like this postseason run. I don't know how you can come away with any other take other than this guy has to be like the number 1 or number 2 pick. I can't like any other read other than that. Like that guy's got the juice, and he just delivered in some of these huge games. I know he wasn't perfect against UNC, but it's like not. I don't know. No one's going to play perfect. So
it was interesting.
This play.
I was sitting next to my brother-in-law who flew down here, who's not steeped in basketball, obviously knows the game, but he's a very smart, intelligent person. Like when I took him to the casino, when we're walking out, he's like trying to calculate the expected loss per player for an hour sitting at the table, like, right? Like he's more fascinated by how it works and how the casino has set the odds, right? So like when we're playing, he's almost like taking the fun out of it when he's like, UNC's missing threes, and he's like, why are they still shooting? I'm like, well, that guy shoots 40%. It's a good shot. It's like he basically dumps it down to like, I mean, this thing's totally luck, right? Like Banchero should be taking those shots that he hits 60% of the time, and they're not going in. He did the right thing, right? Yeah. I thought that was interesting from the jump. I think it was Banchero's first 2 shots. They weren't poorly guarded, but basically he got into the lane and was taking a 6 or 8 footer that like is probably a 60 to 75% shot. And they rolled out, and it was a little like, all right, UNC's going to need that, just like UNC's going to need to make their 3-pointers and have Duke miss some 3-pointers. But, like, it was that much of a coin toss game. Like, both teams did enough of what they wanted to do that it came down to, is your 40% 3-point shooter making his, or is your 33% shooter not making 1 out of 3 or whatever? And that's what it came down to.
Yeah, well, and on the flip side, you've got, Caleb Love heading into that game, a career 36% 2-point shooter. On the season, 37% on twos. Like, so shooting like 10 percentage points below, like shooting lower on twos percentage-wise than he was on threes, right? Like or probably right around that. But shooting like shooting lower on twos than AJ Griffin was on threes heading into the game, you know?
Sure.
And for him to go 8 of 10 on twos, I mean, like, that is, like, obviously the shot that's going to get remembered probably is, like, the pull-up three that he hit. Maybe the one, like, layup, sort of like up and under layup that he had, too. But the point I'm trying to make is it's, like, the three is probably going to be the shot that gets remembered. But, like, that was the best interior finishing game of Caleb Love's career. It's not even close. Even if you don't factor in, like, opponent and you don't
right.
And like the stakes of the game,
the moment, right?
The fact that he was 8 of 10 on twos. This guy shot 80. Like he had never made more than 6 twos in a game. He made 8 in the national semifinal game, and he only missed 2. And I mean, look, maybe part of that is like Mark Williams plays less than half the game, and so you don't have one of the best rim protectors in the world in there. But yeah, just it was like an out of body experience performance for him, and he did that against UCLA too. And like, like it for me that game really reestablished like my belief of something I've said on this show is like Love is the ceiling raiser for UNC. Like like Bacot, Manek, that's the foundation. RJ Davis decision making, that's the thing that's like that gets them going. But like Love is the thing that really takes them from pretty good team with a pretty good offense to a team that can also, like, when he plays like that, it's like, yeah, they can pretty much play with anybody. So I don't know. Huge monster game for him, obviously.
The most maddening thing about Caleb Love for his career to me is not really the bad 3-pointers, because he seems to have almost the NBA mentality on 3-pointers. Like, he knows he's going to finish probably around 36 or 40% threes, and missing 3 in a row does not bother him. And I don't think it's maddening to watch him miss 3 in a row and then miss 2 more, right? The most maddening part has been when he gets a quarter step or a half a step by his first man and dials in that he's shooting the ball a dribble and 2 steps from the rim. And by the time he gets to the rim, 2 dudes are there and he's still throwing it up at weird angles. And like, you're right. He was like, if the rim is open and unprotected, I need to go as fast and quickly to it and make it a layup. If it's not, look for something else. And like, yeah, he seemed to be putting it all together in real time during the NCAA tournament.
It's just like I think we've, I've talked and written a lot about Hubert Davis as a coach this season. Like, I thought even when the season was like, even after the Miami and Wake Forest losses, like, I just thought they were doing cool stuff offensively that was worth pointing out. I think it's like, and maybe you can say like, there aren't a ton of other options, but just like, the amount of leeway that Caleb Love has to like be Caleb Love is something that I don't think you see at a ton of like programs like this that in theory should, like, the coach should be like, all right, like you just bricked your first 6 threes. Like, all right, we got to put someone else in.
Get out of here.
I guess it's like, well, who else would you put in? It's like you ain't got anybody, so you got to roll with the guy who got you here. But I think, and then you see Leaky Black catching and stepping into open threes and that type of stuff. And I just think, like, a lot of that, obviously the players deserve more credit for anyone than that, but probably this staff for empowering these guys. And that hasn't worked with everybody. Like, Kerwin Walton hasn't been as good as this season as he was a year ago. And like, you can tell, like, his confidence hasn't quite been there. But for the guys that are in like the core of the rotation for UNC, like, all of them have just been given the green light to within the confines of the system to do what they see as open, to take shots.
Yep.
And not have to worry about about like just forgetting it and then going back down and playing defense and then just keeping it moving. So I don't know. I think the staff probably gets some credit for. We like to talk X's and O's and we'll talk recruiting and all that type of stuff, but I think there's some psychology and motivation that has happened behind the scenes that we're not privy to. And I think, so I'm projecting. I'm just being an armchair psychiatrist here, but just like I'm willing to bet that has helped this team out significantly in ways that they really can't. It's tough to wrap your mind around right now.
100%. I was skeptical. I wasn't necessarily hugely skeptical of Hubert Davis as a coach, but when you hear, oh, we're going to keep the Carolina system, but we're going to modernize it a little bit, I was skeptical of how different it would look under Roy. Like, to your point, that they would really allow quick threes and have so many minutes without two traditional big dudes on the court. I mean, Manic obviously changed the game personnel wise, but a little bit to your point, but maybe shifted something that's come up repeatedly on this show, because no one's going to argue. Like, Duke has more future-bound, higher-level NBA draft picks on their team, right? By any objective measure, UNC is not devoid of talent. They're not plucky upstarts like, that all walked on and now they're in the national championship game. That's not the case. But in theory, Duke has, more money that will be generated from NBA. But we talked about, and this isn't even really a knock on Duke. It's more of just a bonus that has worked well for UNC. They seemed like dudes, and partly because of the short bench, everybody knew what their role was, right? Last year, there was some sorting out. Who's the point guard, Caleb Love or RJ Davis? This year, it was like, doesn't really matter how we define it, but we know who we want the ball in certain hands. We know where we want Caleb Love to start so he can get to his spot. And just everybody knew their role and does their role. Even like Leaky Black, he shot maybe a couple bad shots, but knowing I'm not the first option, but I do have to take open threes. Like, that's my role, right? So sometimes maybe, And Duke, it wasn't like they were lost or dumb, but like, you just remember during the year, like, Wendell Moore was averaging like 25 points a game for them for a 5-game stretch. Then Trevor Keels looked like their best player for some point. And like all year, it was kind of like, man, we got all these good guys on the court, but should we literally give the ball to Banchero every time and like make that even if it, and it just, it never felt like they clicked into, all right, here's what this guy does, here's what this guy does, and here's what this guy does every night, and that's how we play.
I think for chunks of the season, you're right. In like, look, the injury of Trevor Keels played a role in that. That shook things up. Them getting the COVID they had coming back from, like, they played great in the last game before break against Virginia Tech. And like, that's something like they talked about during the season as being like a disruptive force for them. I do think down the stretch, really once Jeremy Roach was starting to take on like more like on-ball creation, I actually thought they started. I thought the last half dozen games of the season, last 5 games of the season, including the UNC game, they did sort of like center into more well-defined roles.
Yep.
Just the primary ball handler. Banchero's got to touch the ball, most trips, every trip, whatever. But we're going to do that in concert a lot with Jeremy Roach. So he's going to screen and then pop, or we're going to set a screen for him and get him down to the low post. Like they did that repeatedly in the Arkansas game. Just like screen Banchero to the block and let him go to work down there. They did some just like straight isolations in all the games against UNC with Banchero, and like, I like that. I do think that kind of stuff lets UNC, and like he scored on them or made good passes on some of those looks. I do think to an extent that allows UNC off the hook a little bit, just to be like, all right, just keep the ball in front. You know what I mean? Just like everyone just stay solid or show help when we have to, but like there's no like rotations that have to, there's no mismatches necessarily. Like just keep the ball in front. But back to Duke down the stretch, I think once those guys found their roles, Williams, obviously he's got his setup, hang in the dunker spot, look for lobs or screen and roll. And all of a sudden, Moore or AJ Griffin's the spot up guy, the movement shooter. They're going to run some actions for him, but he's also floating in the corner. Like just like wherever Banchero is, he's looking either to the near corner or to skip it to AJ in the weak corner. And then Wendell Moore Jr. became the off-ball cutter for them in the half court. And then Keels was just like the wild card off the bench. I could give them a little bit of, like, if they wanted a little bit more defense or a little more ball handling, then take AJ Griffin off the court, put Trevor Keels on, or whatever. And so I do think they clicked into that, and I think it's why they play. I mean, down the stretch, like they scored the ball. I mean, they were great on offense all season, but like they're probably going to end the year as the number 1 offense in the country in terms of efficiency. And yeah, down the stretch, like they just scored. I think I'm looking at this now. Yeah, going back to the start of the ACC tournament. Yeah, they just, other than for the Virginia Tech game, they were excellent offensively, even without some of the a good shooting performance in the NCAA tournament, in the Final Four game against UNC, in part because like they kept getting to the rim and they weren't turning the ball over. So I agree. Like I think UNC settled into their roles. And I think one of the other things that Hubert Davis did a good job of this season was like, look, Caleb Love gets a lot of touches and a lot of possessions by just being like the guy who just like brings the ball up and has the ball. But I think one of the things that UNC did a nice job of throughout the season, and especially even later in the year, when RJ Davis started taking on more ownership of the one for them, is they were still using Caleb Love on the ball, but they were like, it wasn't just, oh, Caleb, bring it up and we'll run pick and roll and like defense gets to rotate. Like they would have Caleb Love start the possession off the ball, then bring him off a screen away from the basketball, then throw it to him on a handoff. And all of a sudden he'd have a little momentum. The defense is already behind the play. Guys are rotating, scrambling around a little bit. And I just thought that was like, that's so simple, but it was a great way to get that guy going throughout the season. This didn't just start in the NCAA tournament. Like this started when they opened the season against Loyola. But I just thought it was a really nice job to like, you keep this guy engaged, but you're also putting him in scenarios where his role is more clearly defined as like a combo or a shooting guard or whatever. But you're also sort of like neutralizing some of the issues that maybe he has driving and finishing in the interior by letting him get a little bit of momentum before possibly attacking off of the screen. So anyways, I thought UNC clicked into those roles middle of the season, especially once once Dawson Garcia leaves to help his family, you've got all of a sudden you've got the crew that you're in the ship with,
Yep.
And again, I think Duke had that. It took some time, and even for me, like I went back over the weekend or last Friday, I went back and rewatched Duke UNC in Durham. And it was like, for whatever reason, it was like weird for me to see Trevor Keels starting for Duke. I was like,
right.
God, like I forgot. It was like, it's that they didn't like move Roach back into the starting lineup until really late in the season. I guess it was for the Cal State Fullerton game. And so, yeah, they were still tinkering late in the year. You know what I mean?
Yep. A couple things. When next time you go back and rewatch, I am curious. I don't think Banchero touched the ball enough down the stretch for Duke. And sometimes it was even like, it wasn't like he was getting defensive pressure. It was like somebody passed to him and he immediately passed to somebody else, didn't even like face up. And I don't know if it was scheme. I don't know what it was, but I just remember noticing like
too. That was the he played there were various times throughout that game where I was like, this guy's got it. He played 39 minutes. He had crazy high usage. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like in any game, there's like not enough touches for that guy. You know what I mean?
It's weird. And then I did want to comment a little bit on the being there live experience. Obviously, one of the coolest things you could ever be at. You and I have been at like Carolina Hurricanes games, and you just forget what it's like. And partly again because of COVID, these experiences have been like limited or whatever. You forget what it's like to like look around at total strangers, but because they're cheering for the same team you are, it's like, we're friends. We're best friends. You and I, baby. We're in this,
Yeah.
There was a cool I was sort of in the section just above the biggest Carolina, the biggest Duke. Oh, can we also talk about how much of a JV game Kansas and Villanova was? Like, I almost felt bad for them. And people were cheering, and obviously Kansas fans and Villanova fans when they're dialed in. But, like, all weekend, Bourbon Street, restaurant, it just feels like, oh, yeah, it's nice you guys are here too. But everybody that knows, like, it's just JV,
Yeah.
To the point, my buddy I was with was like, you don't want to get in there for the start of Kansas Villanova? And I think a lot of UNC fans were like, no. I'd rather have like 2 more beers and get in there like with like 10 minutes left to go in that game than I would get in there and sit for an hour and stew.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that. This has kind of been described, but it was an odd experience. I mean, obviously, like I said, like if you're at a Carolina Hurricanes game and they win, you're just turning around and you're just, about a playoff game. It's packed. There's 2 fans from the other team and you're all like laughing at them, whatever. But this, after the game ended, partly because the way the setup is, it's different for basketball than football in the Superdome. They're almost like bleachers on top of seats. So it makes it like even harder and more congested to get out of those. But partly because of that, but also just because I think a lot of UNC fans, even if they knew that their team was good and knew that there was a 49% chance that they were going to win, it obviously felt like it felt like the storybook ending was for K to win this game and go and win the title, right? It kind of felt that way. And UNC fans just sort of sat there. It was like, I think there was music playing, but it didn't matter. It was just 10 minutes of just standing in your spot and like looking around and pointing at each other, and just like a vibe washing over. It was it was something I've never quite experienced like that.
While that was happening, I guess Jon Scheyer and Pat Sullivan were getting into it, right?
Do we have any? I've seen no video. I'm sure there's a message board detail. I'm sure like Adam Lucas, whatever his burner message board account is putting all the details that Hubert Davis made him swear not to put out there. He's putting out under an anonymous name. It's so funny,
though, baby. I like it. Like, let's get to February 2023. Like, let's get to the
The only bad thing about it is we got to get it out of the handshake line. Like start like sub-mentioning each other in interviews or stuff like that, where we know what you said, right? This handshake line business is BS. Like I almost want to get rid of the handshake line just because now it's so heavily scrutinized. And I think it was great that Wendell Moore came over and shook hands, but also I'm not like judging any players who didn't. That's like UNC players all went and did their celebration thing. They didn't all run to the handshake line, right? And like we've learned from the NBA, the best way to probably do it is you can do whatever you want. And if you've got somebody you want to seek out on the other side, then you should and go say what's up. But like
the NBA has it so good with coaches because like some of them have just no interest in doing that, and so it's just like the game ends and it's like a peace sign to the other coach, and then they just walk off. It's so awesome. But I love that aspect about the NBA. Like James Borrego is pretty good at being like the coach of the Hornets is pretty good at being like, all right, bye. I'm going to the locker room. Like, good game, you guys. I really like that aspect of the NBA.
But this handshake line beef where nobody knows what happened, it just means that we're going to get on like Thursday, we'll get a report. Hubert Davis and Jon Scheyer have talked about, whatever happened between Pat, because that's what happened last time, right? It's just like, either like beef or don't beef. Don't do this like, petty posturing and then walking it back 3 days later and say, no, we're good sports, whatever.
Right.
Either lean into the beef or don't.
We have so many good college basketball insiders. Like someone get on. We need someone to be like, God, how is ESPN not hired somebody to be, because they have an insider for every sport.
Sure.
How's ESPN not hired someone to be like their beef insider?
There to
get to the bottom of it. When there's a little like dust up like that, like no, you're the pettiness insider. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have you on here to hire someone from TMZ or whatever.
That's a great, because in the NFL you can do it too. You'd be like, oh, are these guys beefing? Well, let's go look. They used to be teammates and they hated each other. This is true beef. Like, this is not just they got mad at each other on the field or whatever. This is a beef. I like that. We need a beef director. Speaking of insiders, I did miss out on a beautiful opportunity. So the one day I went to the one night I went out kind of big on Bourbon Street. The best thing about Bourbon Street, like there's no actual cool bars on Bourbon Street. It's all the fact that everywhere, the whole thing is one big bar, right? It's just a big dive bar. It's a street with like 18 different places every block where you can get a beer, but it's basically just one long bar. It smells like a dive bar, looks like a dive bar. So the best part for me is having a beer in your hand, drinking, and people watching, right? So I get into one bar that's not that crowded enough that you can get up and get out on the balcony, but it's still a crowded part of the street. So like, great spot. I can get a beer easy. I'm watching everybody, and the national writers come cruising through Goodman. Now, some of my colleagues, my peers that are a little bit younger than I, maybe here for bachelor parties on the same, sharing the porch with me, they may be interested in giving out beads for certain reasons. I don't know if you've heard of this tradition in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But I missed out. Like they're yelling at people, kind of sexually harassing them, but like we let that go in New Orleans, really. I look down and see Jeff Goodman. I could have said, hey, give me a 1-bit ACC for some beads.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it. I could have had with him.
It's all good.
Missed out on the opportunity.
It's like the idea was good, execution lacking, I suppose.
Yeah. And quickly on tonight, I don't really need an X and O breakdown. Well, I mean, you're welcome to give me one, but I am sticking with my whoever came out of Saturday night was going to have too much emotionally invested in that to be able to bring. If maybe they were playing, I don't know, an injured Villanova team, I'd feel different. But it's like the emotional thing, and now you're running into like a really, really good team that has pieces everywhere. It seems like they've got two of everything, like two big dudes, two good guards, two and and they're just going to come at UNC in waves. So I'm sticking with Kansas, but it feels like the Duke game. It's a 48%, 52% game, you know?
Yeah, right. It's I think Vegas has it as what, like a 4, like Kansas
4 points, about the same as the Duke UNC. Yep.
And some of the the projection models tend to be pretty close to that. Looks like Bart Torvik has Kansas as like a 5.5 point favorite, but like I don't know. It's just like the way UNC's played better recently. I don't know how much like recent performance goes into some of those projections as compared to events that were happening earlier in the season. But look, this Kansas team is really, really good. Bill Self is a great coach. His staff is really good. They're going to be schemed up and ready to roll against UNC, and they don't have a bunch of scrubs playing for them. They got like an experienced. This team is super experienced. Like that's the other thing about Kansas. Like they're a roster that has multiple first-round picks with Christian Brown and Ochai Agbaji, and but both those guys it's a junior and a senior, and David McCormick is a guy that's really come along as the season's moved on for them. And another fourth-year senior, like he and Baycott's going to be an interesting battle in the post. I'm kind of fascinated by Kansas, which basically plays like 4 guards or wings around McCormick. Like what that means for Brady Manek on both sides of the court. Like he'll have a size advantage likely over who's guarding him, but then he'll probably be at like a quickness disadvantage on defense. You know what I mean? He will have the ability to shoot over the top of some of these guys, though, because he's going to have a size advantage. They've got a forward in Jalen Wilson that kind of reminds me a lot of like Leaky Black from years prior, which like 6'8", hybrid wing, but can't shoot, can like handle the ball a little bit. You know what I mean? A former 5-star recruit. So I think he's like an interesting sort of like wild card piece for them. But I would just say, the wings, Agbaji and Brown are like they're really, really good. Brown is an incredible defender. And I imagine you'll see Leaky Black guard Agbaji would be my guess, because like he was the guy that was set up to take out Johnny Juzang. He's the guy that's gone after AJ Griffin. These sort of like wing off-ball shooter types. And so I'm guessing he'll get that matchup. That would be who knows? Hubert Davis might have something else cooked up, but like that's sort of like the low-hanging fruit matchup that you can point to, be like, no, I can see that one. Kansas has really good guards. And like the transfer they have from Arizona State, Remy Martin, gives them some like scoring punch with the ball handling rotation. But like, I also don't think they have the the big guard like creator that's given UNC trouble this season. Like no Alanis Williams, no Blake Wesley, no Isaiah Wong. They don't have a scorer like that in the backcourt. That's like an NBA guard. You know what I mean? So that will run pick and roll and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe that helps UNC's defense out a little bit. That's gotten really good recently at saying we're going to keep the ball on one side of the court. We're going to drop Armando Baycott against the pick and roll. We're going to try to close off the rim. And we're going to have Leaky Black take away the opponent's best shooter, basically. So I actually kind of like the matchup defensively for UNC, to be honest with you.
All right, I've been trying to keep the vibes positive here on Sports Channel 8 the Monday after a UNC win over Duke. We do have a statement from Ben Swain, but the haters have gotten access to the code and are crashing in here. Neutral Brian Geisinger was fine to talk hoops. But hater Josh Goodson is here to give us his take. What you got, Goodson? How about your heels?
You mean 90? The guy holding a 94-1 futures ticket on my heels to win tonight?
Hater.
There's nothing hater. They're going to win. They're going to win.
A big question: how much are you hedging it?
Yeah,
no, I'm actually not at all.
Wow.
Come on.
No.
Why?
I'm going to try to say this as nice as possible. Every good thing happens to UNC, and whenever opportunity arises, they usually take advantage of the opportunities as well. Yeah. Like UNC just doesn't lose this game in the history of of their college basketball existence. How many times have they lost? Do they actually lose the championship game after they win their Final Four game? It doesn't happen often.
The 2016, Chris Jenkins,
and they lost on a buzzer beater.
Yeah. That's the only one that comes to mind, though.
1981. You guys forget 81. That was brutal. It was brutal because we had to face an ACC team in the semifinal. All that emotional energy on Terry Holland when we lose 5 night.
94-1. Go Hills. I found this guy.
Moose. Oh my God. The
God.
haters are here. This is incredible. I love it.
No hate here. No, we're pro ACC. This is better for the ACC if UNC wins tonight.
He's lying. This is not what he feels. This is not what he actually believes. He's lying.
But by the way, I do love this interview with Goodson is happening because he's not only is he on the golf course right now, but if you forgot that it is Masters Week, yes, and Goodson has the Masters, the Augusta National QSIP going here.
I actually parlayed my UNC to win ticket and Tiger to win. If Tiger wins, I will win basically $50,000. So
not play Tiger to win the whole thing. I absolutely love it. Anything else from your perspective? Did you enjoy the game?
No. I mean, UNC's going to win. Honestly, it sucked that someone had to lose the other night. If we're being totally honest, it was a good game. It was a good basketball game, and I've said it before. I don't hate UNC. This team's actually fun to watch. Their fans are awful. UNC fans are awful. They're so bad. They're awful. They're bad humans. The worst type of people.
There we go. Josh Goodson's take. UNC fans are humans. I didn't pull him out. He pulled himself out there. I'm sure he's going to go bogey another golf hole. All right, we do have a request. Where is the so-called funniest man in the ACC? Tell us Saturday night didn't matter because Duke has juice and more NBA players. I believe that is talking about Ben Swain. Do we have his statement, Brian Geisinger?
Yes, I do. And again, in keeping with the times, this was sent to me from a Notes app screenshot too.
All right, a statement from Ben Swain.
So not only do I have a statement from Ben Swain, but I think I can report that he's in the transfer portal or that he's reopening his recruitment. One of those two things is certainly true now. But yeah, here we go. Prepared statement from Ben Swain, post Duke/UNC. And here we go. I will be speaking in Ben's words here.
Swain.
Man, how about that opening? Can't believe Permar played the wrong song again. And Moose, the sign on your hat is freaking hilarious. Which, by the way, that is funny because Moose was wearing a Sports Channel 8 hat. Ben continues. Sorry I couldn't be there today. My kid has allergies, and we have to jump through hoops to prove it's not COVID. So I'm dealing with that. Thanks a lot, Biden/Trump, depending on if BG or Goodson is reading this. First, to all the Duke fans out there, hell of a run this season. Crazy to think that Coach K put on one of his best coaching performances of his entire career in his final season. From missing the tournament last year to the Final Four, an ACC regular championship this year, a championship I've been told is far more important than the ACC tournament. You can see why everyone was saying that Duke was playing with house money in New Orleans. A nice tongue-in-cheek there from Swain. And by the way, I do want to circle back to K because we should.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, but back to Swain here. Now the attention shifts to the offseason and convincing Banchero, Moore, Williams, and Keels to come back next season, which is clearly what all five-star recruits should do for the betterment of their careers. And I wonder what head coach Jon Scheyer's first move is. Does he take away Michael Savarino's scholarship as soon as Poppy hands over the passwords? Or does he push Joey Baker through the transfer portal like it's the Moon Door in Game of Thrones? Second, to the UNC Tar Heels, congratulations on making the championship game. A special shout-out to the UNC medical staff for the speedy leg transplant they performed during the under-4 timeout to get Baycott back in the game after he apparently died. But seriously, the emergence of R.J. Davis changed the entire team. It not only gives UNC a chance against Kansas, but makes them the early favorite next year when Davis, Baycott, Love, and somehow Manic all return next season.
Let's go.
So true.
Feel free to talking about it.
It's so true. Here we go. Final graph here. Lastly, to UNC fans, thank you for proving my point. Unless your team wins tonight, the most interesting thing about UNC basketball's program is they beat Duke. When your head coach mentioned that UNC basketball has been irrelevant, understand he's leaving off the implied compared to Duke quote, which has become the bar for the program. Just like Maryland in the 2000s and Notre Dame and Virginia in the 2010s, the standard your program strives to achieve. But just like any good big brother who should support his little brother, good luck tonight against Kansas. I'll be wearing my sticker of Roy Williams wearing a Kansas State. Well done.
Well done.
The man is a gift.
Here's the thing, like my UNC fans seriously like text me and they're like, Permar, you got to get a UNC fan that are stand up to Swain. Like I can't stand. Like I promise we don't try to be like, I mean, whatever. Everybody's being their natural selves, right? That's what I mean. None of it is like scripted. If Swain is tweaking you, that is like Ben Swain being who he is, right? You should know anytime in any conversation with Brian Geisinger that Chris Paul can be made fun of, Ben Swain will do it. Like he will reach outside of the conversation to bring Chris Paul in to make a dig.
There was one time it actually in 2018 where it actually made me mad.
I know. I was kind of implying. I knew you and I knew that, and that's what I think people need to get. Of like, I love Swain. He's a good friend of mine, and there are times where he's tweets me, and I've been like, damn it, I'm kind of mad, Like, but mostly it was probably other things going on in my life that were making me mad. That like that one day, the same joke that I normally would be like, yeah, it's funny. So it's I don't know. I don't care that people get mad at Swain or whatever. Like you're allowed to do that, just like he's allowed to tweet whatever he wants or not tweet when he wants, right?
Yeah. Well, also thank you for listening and following too.
That's kind of to my point. Is there are people in the industry who like have decided that's how they're going to play their careers for ratings or whatever, right? Like Mark with a C that used to be in Charlotte radio. Like he was a professional troll. Like you talk to him. I know. Just and a terrible person. So like whatever you think of Swain, just know that like there's no secret ploy to like do it to make you mad. It's just funny to me. Like some outlets would be like, this is awesome. All these people are hating Swain and tweeting about it. It's like that's the goal in some people's sports radio. For us, I swear it's just everybody being the fan that they are, from Goodson to BG, who's more of a fan of the game of basketball, to me, who's a UNC fan, to Duke, who's to Swain, who's a Duke fan who likes to troll. Like that's what it is. Like, that's fine.
He's funny. He's clever.
I know. That's the thing. When these same joke, like the same structures are used to make jokes about the Montreal Canadiens, like everyone buys in and we all love it because we hate the Canadians. But like when he chooses to do it for Duke against UNC, like people, and I love that, if people are like, well, because he made jokes, now he has to come and like suffer on Twitter and pay some penance. It's like,
sorry, that's not how it works,
If his job was the 11 o'clock newscaster and he was a Duke fan, yes, he has to go on 11 o'clock and still do the news or whatever. But I don't know. I find it funny. But I also like to admit to people like, you and I, good friends of Swain, have been angered by a Swain tweet before, but usually we can step back and be like, this is fine.
I promise you, any like UNC fans that get mad at Swain or Wake fans or Virginia fans, Swain's cool. He'd be a fun guy to have a beer with sometime.
There is part of me that I do get mad at how much of it is because it makes you realize like none of it is important because we're talking sports, but this is the same thing that happens in our political and whatever thing world. Like people who see things slightly differently but are mostly good humans, and if they were all hanging out, would be like, this guy's funny, this guy's cool. When we only know ourselves in that online world, it creates different.
We may have lost this as like politics is the entry point for this, by the way. We may be beyond that now.
I'm just saying, yes. I'm just saying I do think that's part of it, is that our personas and understandings of each other are more about the online presence, which is, than it is the personal presence. But whatever, that's a whole nother discussion. Let's do finish on Coach K. I'm gonna say something, then I know you wanted to say something. For me, Coach K obviously deserves every honor he's gotten, including if he wanted to do a farewell tour, he deserves to do it. I do think there will be legitimate questions. I think Duke fans are even asking, like, oh, if he knew now how it might play out, not that he lost, but like I didn't picture exactly how it might fall on the players. Maybe he would have done it differently. Maybe not. Maybe they say, you know what, in the grand scheme, the transition is the most important thing, right?
Yeah. For
me, growing up a UNC fan, I hated K and called him rat face because that was part of being a UNC fan. And also I was like 19 at the time, right? And our good friend and mentor to both of us, David Glenn, I steal this phrase from him all the time because it's true. You got to judge somebody on their body of work, right? Absolutely. If I want to say, here's why I don't like Coach K, there are 5 things I can immediately bring up. That time with Dylan Brooks that he lied. Yes, you can, say the things he's talked about, mistakes he made. Like not realizing what it was like to be Dean Smith when he was young Mike Krzyzewski, right? And like implied in that is I did some things that I would not do now if I knew things. But for me, my takeaway is as much as I've enjoyed cheering against Duke, to whatever level Ben Swain says that's the most important thing for a UNC fan, it became impossible for me to maintain hate for Coach K in the way that most people who hate Coach K are really only they're buying into like the TV package of it, right? Like they're playing, they don't actually hate him. So I get that. But UNC fans, I think, sometimes really think they do hate him. And it's like, you don't. And been said before, and I've seen different stories come out, but the way he understands and has treated people locally when he didn't have to, not just media, but just people in general, and sitting down with Sports Channel 8 for interviews when we weren't even a radio show, we were nobodies. It just the Duke folks in general and Coach K specifically, because he's obviously been the point person and being like, this is how our athletic department is going to run and be known. They are just good people to work with, and they do great work. And he is the leader and the face of that. And it's impossible to hate and impossible not to have respect for it if you've ever had to actually work with them and him specifically. So a thank you to Coach K for all he's meant to the ACC in this area, like shaped my view of sports and love of it in a way. And so it's still okay to, you want to buy a funny T-shirt with a caricature of Coach K on it. I'm not saying don't do that. That's being a fan, right? But just stop for a minute and realize he deserves respect. Overall, his body of work is of a great basketball person, coach, and patriot to this country, if I'm being cliche and whatever. But I have nothing but respect for him. I will miss him. It was fun to see him lose to Carolina in his last game, and college basketball owes him a debt of gratitude. So that's my final on there, and I'll let you close out.
Yeah, like I mirror a lot of what you said. What I will start with is on like the immediate, which is that it was like a great job by him this season, I think, in total coaching. And I think he sort of, even like at times down the stretch, I just thought Duke was doing some cool stuff. Like I thought he coached a good NCAA tournament. Some of the in-game stuff they were doing, the way they were mixing up matchups, even in the UNC game, but just using that last timeout, the use it, lose it timeout before halftime to scramble up, to call up a play, and then to also shift to zone defense and to throw off whatever Arkansas wanted to do, after the timeout there. Just like little stuff that I thought they were kind of nailing. I just thought he was like kind of on his game. I thought it was sort of like a throwback performance for him at times. It really in the NCAA tournament, and you could kind of see he and his staff, like the gears turning. And I just thought they did a nice job, obviously led by K. And so, there were times this year that you would see people talk like, "Oh, has the game passed him by or whatever?" And like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think when you recruit at that level and you can still like in these like pressure packed situations be like nimble and willing to like do stuff and try different stuff and call stuff out and have your players execute it. Look, most of the credit goes to the players. Like, it's about them. They're the ones on the court. But yeah, I just thought K late in like the bottom of the ninth of his coaching career was still throwing strikes. And that's pretty impressive. And it's not easy to do when you're 70 whatever years old. I don't care how good your players are. It's still hard to take that and execute off of it. What I would say more broadly is like, I guess Duke doesn't have to be the evil empire. And like K doesn't have to be this like all-encompassing figure for everything that you hate about the game of basketball. He's really not like that. I say this as someone that grew up a diehard Wake Forest fan and hated Duke and hated UNC when I was a kid. Hated them. In fact, I know I have there in my room at my mom's house in Winston-Salem. I've got a press clipping on like literally taped to the wall from the Winston-Salem Journal, where K is complaining about how when Skip Roster got there, Wake started doing all these like pyrotechnics and cool stuff during the starting lineups. You know what I mean? And there's some quote about K being like, "Wow, like we don't have to do that at Cameron." Like all like the Welcome to the Jungle and doing like having like the lights shoot, like all like the smoke, like all of this stuff. And I remember being like, man, F this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause like I'm having fun at these games and then it being like, Duke has lost 2 or 3 straight in Winston-Salem or whatever. And I mean, I remember taping that to my wall when I was a kid. And and then I went to NC State in undergrad where I like it started to become less of a thing because like UNC State is sort of like more of like a central rivalry,
Sure.
but it's still there. And then like I was lucky enough to get into like sports media, to get into college basketball media, to get to work with guys like you and David Glenn, to be at a place like the ACC Sports Journal. Hell, I even got a call for ESPN Radio, one of the games against Syracuse this season. But I started around 2013, 2014. I started getting to be around this program a lot. And I've been credentialed on my own since the 2016, 2017 season over there. And I've been treated with nothing but like respect over there, like at Duke and UNC too, State for their like States. You can say it's about them as well, but just like a first class operation. You know what I mean? And I think this was like K definitely like softened with time as many people do when they age. Now you can also like his mentor Bobby Knight has gone in the opposite. Like as he's aged, he's become even more of a grump. And probably you could probably even say worse things about him than calling him a grump. But like I think K has softened. I think he's evolved both in how he builds his program, but also like if you go to a Duke game now, guess what? There's a lot of pregame noise that gets played.
Yeah.
It's like he was willing to at least delegate that and say like no, like we'll open it up. We're going to make it like more of a fun experience in here. I don't even necessarily want to do like, like the great man, like the quote unquote the great man speech or whatever.
Sure.
But I've just like enjoyed his candidness and his openness about a bunch of different topics. I think he has a slightly better sense of humor than maybe he gets credit for. And it is interesting to see when you see quotes from people that literally know him best, Jeff Capel, Nolan Smith, the way they describe like their interactions and working with him and what their relationship's been like to grow from a player to a colleague to a rival coach to back to being, like it's just very obvious that he's there for his players. And
Yep.
And look, like again, I don't want to do again, there's been too many like, fawning profiles the last couple of months. The last thing I would close it on and say is it's just like I know that like my point of view, because of that, even as trying to be like unbiased media, I guess makes me feel biased sometimes now to cape up for this stuff. But I'm like always kind of amazed when I step back and see just like how much I'm just always kind of amazed how much like we see like nationwide. Like everyone was thrilled to be stomping on Coach K's grave after the game the other night, and it was like I don't know, man. Like this thing's gonna be like less interesting once he's gone. You know what I mean? And just feeling like privileged to have been around the rivalry, both as like a fan and a media member, and sort of like a little sad that there's no Roy, there's no K now. Duke and UNC are always gonna be Duke and UNC, but it is a little different. And then like as far as like this, like the Coach K announcing his retirement, like all I know, like literally every time K has been asked about this, he has said that it's been about succession, right? And it's been about recruiting, and it's been about like setting them up for him to be able to coach one more season and go beyond that. And look, like built into that, there was certainly going to be a lot of like of praise and media attention for K during this farewell tour. But I don't know what to do other than to take him at face value. And when he says this was about recruiting, this was about succession, I have to believe him. You know what I mean? Like what, so I don't know. I'm not surprised that like this season has been interpreted by a lot of people, UNC fans namely, but also just like people that don't like Duke, as like, okay, was doing this literally all about himself. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily like maybe there's some truth to it, but I think ultimately the decision really was to set Duke up beyond 2022 with Jon Scheyer and Nolan Smith and Chris Carrawell and Emil Jefferson. So I feel lucky to have been around it this season. It was a great ride. It was something I'll never forget from my career. And now let's just see if UNC can bring a title home to the ACC tonight, I guess.
Word. I may or may not be in a hotel that's on fire. I'm being told to exit. Right. The only thing I'll end on is I'm not putting it at 5%. I'm not putting it at 10%. I'm not putting it at 20 or anything crazy. No emergency. We're good. But I am, especially after seeing Brady, I'm just putting it at a 0% chance that we see K. It might be a 0.1% chance, but I think it's at least out. I think it's non-zero, but we'll see. We plan to go short, but it's the Final Four and the championship. So hoop heads like me and Brian Geisker had to go a little bit longer. Thanks for folks for sticking around. We had great numbers. Thanks to whoever let me know that there is not an emergency and we're not on fire. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back at it on Wednesday. Oh, and quick apologies. I said I would do a Manic Monday song if the Heels made it to Monday. I may have said that not believing they would make it to Monday a little bit. The odds were still low, but also my voice is wrecked. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't think I could do a song. I'll see what I could do. I know there's like 6 of you out there that's what you want, but I'll do my best. Maybe I'll owe you one next week or something. We'll see.
Yeah, that could work too. For
Brian Geisker of ACCSports.com, for Ben Swain, who statemented in today, Josh Goodson, everybody showed up today. It was cameo appearance. Enjoy the championship game tonight, especially if you're a UNC fan. If you're in New Orleans, come find me. I need more poker chips. All right, peace. We out.